Good morning. I want you to imagine that it's Tuesday morning, normal Tuesday morning in your store. Service drive opens at 7. By 7:15, there's 11 cars in line. At 9, there's customers walking into the showroom. You see one who's been on your website every Sunday night looking at the same SUVs, and they're finally in the store. At 9:20, she might be on a test drive. By 10:30, there's a deal on the desk. At 11, the F&I manager is structuring it. And by noon, there's an invoice in service, the whole stack starting to pile up from different customers, brake jobs or lube or whatever else needs to be done. Phone calls coming in from more customers about trades. By noon, all of that has happened. And that's just a tiny snapshot of what you deal with every single day in your store, all of the interactions that are happening in all of the different departments. Your store has hundreds of these moments before lunch. And in every single one of them, every call, every walk-up, every deal, every RO, there's information that's being generated about your customers, your inventory, your people, and your market that until very recently, the software that's running your store had no idea what to do with. That's what I'm here to talk about today. There are two waves of AI that are hitting our industry right now and hitting the world. And the first one you've probably already used. You might have already used it at some point today. Most of you have had something write you an email or summarize a document or summarize some notes for you at least sometime in the last week. The ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's all of these different systems that are pervasive throughout the whole industry and throughout the world right now. And the second wave is just arriving. Most of us haven't really seen it yet. I want to talk you through both of them, where each one came from, where each lands inside of your store, and what they're all still leaving on the table. The first wave, as I mentioned, was generative AI. And the cleanest way to think about generative AI like it's an intern. The intern can write you a draft, it can answer a question, it can summarize a document, it can suggest some options. But the intern, is fundamentally bounded. You hand them a defined task, they hand you back a defined output. You're still doing all of the real work, all of the really thoughtful work. Like I said, you've all used it, whether it's Claude or GPT, et cetera, for email summaries or image generation. That's the wave that's already here, and it's everywhere. At Reynolds, we bet really early, though, that generative AI could do a lot more than just write copy. Back in 2024, we launched Spark AI as a unified data layer underneath the retail management system. And on top of it, we delivered 4 products. Conversation AI that transcribes every call your store takes and surfaces the hot ones to your sales managers. Engagement AI, which handles text follow-up with leads and pings staff when the customer is ready to move. Prospect AI, which predicts which of your customers will buy, what they'll buy out of your inventory, and how they'll pay. And Merchandising AI, which writes the vehicle descriptions from the VIN, cleans the photo backgrounds, and places consistent overlays on every vehicle across every channel. These work, and our dealers get value from them from the day they turn them on and keep getting value every day that they're running. So our bet was correct, that there was enormous productivity that was locked up inside of these bounded tasks that a model could do faster and at least as well as somebody that's done it for the 400th time this week. So efficiency increased dramatically, and the tools opened the door for the second wave, which is Agentic AI. Some of you may have heard this term or might be unfamiliar with it, but if you think about it, generative AI is like an intern. Agentic AI is like an employee. The employee doesn't have to wait for a bounded task. The employee can read the lead, can check inventory, can send an email, can log the interaction, can schedule the callback. The employee, in other words, can reason across the whole store and decide what to do next with the tools that are available to it. And so the work gets done. Another way to think about it is the generative steps are automatically sequenced together by the agent. This is an architectural shift, not just a smarter AI model, which I think is often misunderstood. the entire tech industry had to stop bolting on these generative tools and start building a proper home for AI to actually work inside of the software systems. So at Reynolds, we had to build out vector databases. We had to create function calling. We had to leverage the model context protocol. What we needed to do across all of the different servers was really to build a proper home for those agents to be able to live inside of the ecosystem. When we talk about agentic AI, what we're talking about is really a spectrum. Some agents recommend and they wait for you to approve. Some agents will take action all on their own, but operate within some guardrails. Some will run a workflow all the way end to end. And the further you go on that spectrum, the more autonomy that you give to that agent, the higher the stakes are, of course, of getting it right. You'll see our work in agentic AI with Ray. Ray reads across that Spark AI data layer, and it takes action on your behalf inside of our software. And it starts to feel less like a tool and more like a teammate. Ray really becomes a part of your team. So I want you to picture what it would be like on that same Tuesday morning that we talked about earlier with a full agentic infrastructure in place. Your service manager wouldn't start the day by reading reports. Ray hands them 3 ROs that need attention and tells them why. Your sales manager wouldn't spot check calls. Ray already routed the ones that mattered. The GM doesn't reconstruct yesterday. Ray reconstructed it overnight and gave them a summary. And your controller doesn't have to pull the deal level analysis every Friday. Ray runs it on Thursday and flags anything that's worth a conversation. Decisions can get made earlier in the day with better information by fewer people. And that's what the agentic wave actually feels like in your store. You know, it feels and sounds a little bit like science fiction, but at the end of the day, it's not. It's just a faster Tuesday. This is where the industry is heading right now. It's where most serious R&D dollars are going, ours included. It's real and it's very, very valuable. And every vendor worth taking seriously is racing to get good at this. And at Reynolds, we're proving every day that we're the best at it. But there's still a ceiling here. The challenge is that even with the very best agentic software, it can only evaluate what it has in context when it's called up. When your customer that we talked about earlier comes in for a second visit, the agent is looking at the same data they had the last time, and it's trying to figure out what to do next from scratch. Agents can't solve that problem the way that software is built today, because they're fundamentally taking action on software that was built really for human operators only. But every action and interaction inside of your store is unique, and they're constantly evolving. So the question becomes, how can we adapt the software itself to the dealership, to the salesperson, and to the unique interaction with every customer? And that challenge is where I'm spending most of my time. At Reynolds, we're building out a proprietary architecture and infrastructure with our own hardware, our own GPUs inside of our own data centers to give that a home and all of these processes a home to really have that kind of agentic memory and the processing power capable of dealing with these kinds of scale problems. What we're looking for here is a platform that senses the business as it runs instead of waiting to be asked. And so you might be asking yourself, as I do just about every day, what would the software actually look like if the system itself could remember? So I told you at the start that there's 2 waves of AI that are hitting our industry, and that's true, but I think there's a third one coming right behind them. It doesn't have an industry-wide name yet, but I call it cognitive software. The way I think about this is a story I think every one of you know already. Every store in this room, I'm sure, has had a 30-year veteran on the floor. It's the one who knows every customer's kids' names, who can tell from a service ticket who's about to trade, who can walk past the deal at the desk, say one sentence, and wave their magic wand and close the deal. And every store in this room has watched that person retire and watched a new hire open the same customer's file, no matter how good that file is, open it up, and start over again from zero. That gap between what the veteran knew and what the file holds is the gap that cognitive software closes. That's the shift, where AI lives in the data, not adjacent to the data. And for this to happen, it's going to require two large structural changes to how we think about software overall. First, the records themselves need to have a memory. A new salesperson on their first day opens a customer file, walks onto the floor with every insight about them, because the record has been compounding these details across every interaction that your store has had with them for the last 6 years. And that won't just make the agent smarter, it won't just make Ray smarter, it makes your salesperson smarter too. Underneath that, it's a completely different architecture than anything that's come before. Some people in the tech industry are talking about it as institutional memory for the next generation of AI. I like to call it layered intelligence. Rays on the surface that you're interacting with, the records that carry their own memory come right below that, and the substrate that connects them so that they sense and update from each other as the business runs is what makes this all work. So that second shift that goes underneath, the one that takes it beyond just memory, is the one where we're really doing a lot of hard science still to try to figure out how to make this work and make it work at scale. Every enterprise system that you've ever used, every DMS, every CRM, every ERP, has been event-based. So what that means is that when something happens, it fires a workflow, and then the system goes back to waiting. Cognitive software is signal-based. It's continuously sensing the overall state of every record in the system, and it's understanding where it is on its journey. And when the signal shifts, so a customer opens an email, or a vehicle's days on lot crosses a threshold, or a deal stalls out at the desk, the related records all update accordingly. Put it another way, the signal travels and the system responds as a whole. And it's worth noting here that the absence of an event is a signal too. The customer who always opens your emails and didn't open this one, or the vehicle that should have moved by now and it hasn't. The salesperson whose close rate dropped this week and nobody noticed. Event-based software can't see any of that unless it's manually triggered because nothing happened. Signal-based software treats nothing happened as one of the loudest things that the system can hear. You can think about it, I guess, as managing the exceptions, but these are exceptions that nobody would have seen unless you went to look for them. Event-based software, in other words, waits to be asked. Signal-based software notices, and that's the difference. We need the software to start noticing. So, here's where I want to leave you on this. First, the foundation has to stay solid. The accounting has to be the accounting. The workflows that you trust to run your store still have to run your store. None of this is going to be interesting if it makes your books wobble or it takes longer to close out at end of month. The cognitive layer makes what works fit better. It doesn't replace what works. Second, and this is another important one to understand clearly, the fit that builds up inside of the system from running your business serves your business. The pattern your store creates tunes the system to your store. It doesn't tune it to the dealer down the street. Now the foundation is shared, the software foundation is shared across every store that's on the platform, but the fit is specific to yours. Third, that fit will deepen over time. It's not the switch that you flip. The platform will arrive complete and capable on day one, but the fit is going to take longer. A month in, the system will be sharper. 6 months in, it'll be even sharper. And by a year in, it'll be doing things that you never would have expected in places that you wouldn't have thought to look for it. Eventually, the gap between a cognitive platform that's been running a store and a standard platform that's been running a store for the same period of time isn't just a feature gap, it's a compounding knowledge gap. because that standard platform will reset every time that it's asked a question, and yours won't. Everyone thinks about agents right now, whether they say it out loud or not, as measuring the value and headcount that you can remove. That's the agentic pitch. Count the seats that you don't need. Cognitive software, though, answers a different question, because the fit that builds up in your system is people getting better at their jobs. The new hire that walks onto the floor with details that would have taken them 20 years to capture before. And you don't capture that value once and bank it, it compounds every single day that your store runs, because your people are the ones that are generating the signal that the system is learning from. If you take them out of the loop, then the loop stops. Every interaction, every outcome, even every non-action, feeds the cognitive software. Not just the siloed digital interactions, but the personal interactions. Your people feed the software, and it in turn makes them the best version of themselves. And with that, your business becomes the best version of itself. And one more thing worth saying out loud here, this isn't unique to our industry. This is not just an automotive thing. It's how the next decade of serious enterprise software is going to get built across every category in every industry. And we're in a really good seat to see it here at Reynolds, because in automotive, the workflows and the data have been accumulating for a really long time. We've had a front row seat to a lot of that. But make absolutely no mistake, this wave is bigger than any that we've seen before it, and it will almost certainly create a massive gap between the leaders and the followers. So to sum that up, the first wave gave us features. It was the intern. Dealerships are using the solutions, they've been a success, they've created real measurable value. The second AI wave is giving us agents. It's the employee, it's happening right now. It's revolutionizing our industry and it's revolutionizing the world. And we're leading the charge in automotive with Ray AI. The third wave, though, the one that I'm personally the most excited for, is where everything will finally come together. It's the cognitive signal-based systems that actively learn from the dealership it runs inside of. This is what we're working on. This is what we're building. So let's revisit that Tuesday morning, maybe 5 years from now. Service doors open at 7. The line is shorter, not because there's less customers, but because the system has been listening to the techs all week, and half of the vehicles pulling up this morning were flagged for an issue before they even got on the schedule, which means the parts aren't coming in later, the parts came in yesterday. It means that the loaners are already staged. It means that the advisor's screen already shows what each vehicle needs, what your store's history says about how long this job is going to take for this model in this season of the year, and which bay it should go to. It's the morning rush not being a rush anymore. So then the customer walks in at 9. The salesperson meets her, takes her out for a drive, sits down at the desk, and the screens look the way that you'd expect. They're clean, fast, they're intelligent, full of helpful agents and insights. But underneath those screens, the system has spent 5 years tightening around the store. These customers, this market, these people. The salesperson knows things about how to work with this customer that the system surfaced before they even asked, things that the 30-year veteran would have just known. The desk knows things about how the deal is likely to structure that no generic system could possibly know, and the service department knows things about the vehicle that no log file could hold. It's the same morning in the same store, same business that you've been running for 30 years, but with a version of software that over time running your operation fits in the way that nothing in enterprise software has ever fit a business before, because it knows your business. Think about the places in your life where you feel known, where they don't ask, they just know you. There's a reason that you value that. It's because it's the difference between a transaction and a relationship. That's what your store can be at scale when the software remembers. That's what the next era of automotive software looks like, and it's being built by Reynolds, the same people who built the last one. Thank you very much.